Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about something tricky. The tense, complicated relationship between the things we create, what we believe is right and wrong, and, well, who gets to decide the difference?
All right, so to really get into this, we're going to start with a piece of art that honestly throws a really tough question right in your face the second you see it.
Okay, picture this. You walk into a cool, quiet art gallery, and this is what you see. Live goldfish just swimming around peacefully in a bunch of fully functional blenders. And right there, next to each one, is a button. The artist is inviting you to push it. So what do?
This installation is called Helena by Marco Evaristi, and it's designed to be confrontational, to get right in your head. It really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. Can something that feels unpleasant, or even just plain cruel, still count as art? And that's where thinkers like the philosopher A.C. Grayling come in. He'd argue that if we think art always has to be nice, we are completely missing the point. For Grayling, art's real power is often in its ability to shock us, to make us uncomfortable, and to force us to look at things we'd much rather ignore.
And this whole tension, it basically splits the art world, and philosophy for that matter, right down the middle into two big camps. And this isn't some new debate either. It's been going on for centuries.
So on one side, you've got the autonomists. They believe art lives in its own little bubble, totally separate from our everyday rules of right and wrong. Its value is all about aesthetics. Then, on the other side, you've got the moralists. For them, art and morality are completely intertwined. They'd argue that for a piece of art to be truly great, it also has to be, in some fundamental way, good.
Grayling has a great historical point to back up his autonomous view. He reminds us that the Impressionist paintings that we think of as priceless masterpieces today, well, when they first came out, critics absolutely hated them. They called them craftless tat, basically meaningless junk. Kind of shows you that history has a funny way of changing our minds about what counts as great art.
But then you flip the coin. You've got thinkers like the famous philosopher Immanuel Kant. For him, and for others like Leo Tolstoy, beauty and goodness were two sides of the same thing. They believed that truly great art should elevate us, connect us to some universal moral good. If the artist's heart wasn't in the right place, then the art itself was flawed. Simple as that.
Okay, let's throw another wrench in the works, shall we? We've been talking about the art itself, but what about the artist? What do we do when we find out that the person who created something we absolutely love has done something absolutely terrible?
It's a huge dilemma, isn't it? If you enjoy the art of a bad person, are you somehow condoning their sins? But on the other hand, if we just ban the art, are we erasing something beautiful and culturally important from the world?
I mean, a perfect example is Michael Jackson, a total global icon. The guy's musical genius is just undeniable. The impact he had on culture is massive. And yet, his whole legacy is clouded by these incredibly serious and disturbing allegations of child abuse. As the ethicist Elijah Weber put it, the music itself hasn't changed. The songs sound the same. But the context for us, how we hear them, has been completely altered. Ignoring the alleged crimes feels like a massive disrespect to the victims. But ignoring his art, well, that feels like denying a cultural reality. There's just no easy answer here. And then there's the even starker case of the artist Graham Ovenden. His photos of young girls were once displayed in the famous Tate Gallery, viewed as innocent and artistic. But then he was convicted of child sex offenses. The Tate immediately removed the work. The photos themselves didn't change one bit, but the new context transformed them. They weren't art anymore. They were symbols of something perverse. It's a powerful example of when morality can just completely overwrite aesthetics.
So here's the crucial part. These deeply personal moral judgments we all make, they don't just stay in our own heads. They can ripple outwards, gathering steam, until they become the ultimate societal hammer: censorship.
And this process often follows a really predictable path. The critic Julia Farrington calls it a web of challenges. It all starts with someone getting offended. That can escalate into hostility, protests, even threats. Suddenly, the gallery or museum gets scared, they're worried about lawsuits, losing money, and eventually, maybe the government steps in and poof, the art is just gone.
But you know what might be even more damaging? It's the censorship you don't see. It's this invisible threat of self-censorship. It's when artists and institutions become too afraid to even try to create or show something challenging in the first place. And what do you get from that? A culture of safe art, of silence, of just blandness. As the author Salman Rushdie says so powerfully, this fear is what suffocates creativity long before any official censor ever needs to show up. Just the thought that you might be censored, well, that's its own kind of prison for the creative mind. So, if you follow this path from personal offense to institutional fear, it leads to a really chilling question. What happens when it's not just a gallery director making these decisions? What happens when the state itself decides it's the ultimate judge of morality in art? Well, history gives us a pretty terrifying answer. In 1937, the Nazi regime staged the Degenerate Art Exhibition. They confiscated thousands of modern artworks, called them diseased and corrupt, and then displayed them in this chaotic, messy way, specifically to mock them. It was their way of enforcing a state-sponsored idea of moral hygiene.
And they didn't just critique the art, they systematically destroyed it. They burned thousands of paintings and sculptures. They destroyed the careers and the lives of the artists. It's a horrifying reminder of what happens when moral judgment gets weaponized by the state. It doesn't just silence voices, it erases an entire culture.
And this is why Salman Rushdie gives us this one last, powerful metaphor. He says liberty is like the air we breathe. We just take it for granted. We assume it's always going to be there, and we don't really think about it until it starts to get thin.
See, great art isn't meant to be safe entertainment. At its very best, it's a revolution. It questions everything we think we know. It rocks the boat. And Rushdie's point is that if we want to keep the air of liberty breathable, we have to be willing to defend the very art that rocks the boat the hardest.
And that leaves us with one final thought to take away. In a free society that wants to value both art and morality, where do we draw that line? And maybe the most important question of all is, who do we trust to draw it?